I was born in Mitchell, South Dakota, which is in the eastern part of the state. And basically my dad was a farmer. We lived on a farm in Spencer, South Dakota. And eventually I was the oldest of 6 children, but when I had polio, there were only 2 of us.
What kind of place was that to grow up in?
Very rural, no electricity, no running water, outhouse, blizzards in the wintertime that are hard to deal with. I was visiting my grandparents out near Spencer, South Dakota, and my grandparents went to a fundamentalist church where the preacher did a lot of hollering and stomping and what have you. We came home and I had a headache and I didn't feel well. So my grandmother put me to bed for the rest of the day, and I woke up the next morning with a sore throat, you know, like you. And I loved Smith Brothers cough drops. So I asked my grandmother if I could get one, because I thought, boy, and she said, sure, go, you know, they're up in the cupboard. So I went into the kitchen, climbed up on a chair, and I fell off the chair and I couldn't get up. And that's what I remember. I was only 4 years old. That was in 1941. That scared the pants off my grandparents. And my parents came to get me, my mother and our family doctor. I ended up in the local hospital. I'm not really sure how long, but my big recollection of that is that they put me in a crib with iron bars. And I thought that the Wicked Witch had kidnapped me and was trying to fatten me up so she could eat me, and I wouldn't eat. So I refused to eat while I was in the hospital. I left the hospital. I wasn't able to walk. I was paralyzed on my left side. And it took about, I think it took maybe 2 or 3 months before I was admitted to a Shriners Hospital in Minneapolis for rehabilitation. When I first got there, the ward I should have gotten into had the measles, so they were quarantined. And I was in a separate, like an isolation ward until, you know, they were sure I was free of infection. But, you know, being 4 years old, I violated the rules and I went and played with those kids. And I ended up, my punishment was they put me in an operating room all by myself for a whole day. You know.
They didn't operate on you?
No, they didn't operate. They just put me in the room, and you know, they'd come by and look in the window every once in a while to make sure I was still there and I was okay. But that's one of my recollections. But they took very good care of me. I got good rehabilitation, and I went home and was able to function fairly well. I think it very much fostered a sense of independence, not wanting to rely on others to take care of you, to be able to take care of yourself. I'd say that. And I think I turned to books, I turned to developing my intellectual capacities because I couldn't do the physical stuff. But I think it made me a stronger person. I think in the long run, it made me much stronger. Just more able to cope because you had that to cope with when you were pretty young. The recovery process from polio, basically the neurons that were killed never come back, but those that remain sort of gear up and work very hard the rest of your life. But because you've been paralyzed, you've lost 60% of your neurons, and the remaining 40% have to do all the work the rest of your life. Eventually, as you get older, there's sort of a gotcha that the weakness comes back because those overworked neurons sort of quit working so hard. Oh, I think there was so much gratitude that it was there because especially in the 50s, there were so many children, and a lot of deaths, not just paralysis, but a lot of deaths from polio. So I think it was almost a panic mode that people flocked to it at that point. It was a wonderful thing to happen, that their children weren't going to be crippled and and possibly die from this awful, misunderstood disease, basically.